the meeting. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Lynn, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Halchansky? Here. Mrs. Vanderwater? Here. Ms. Lesniak? Here. Mr. Tucker?
Here.
Mr. Dudzinski? Ms. Saban?
Here. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of the May 4th meeting?
I have two corrections.
Okay,
Page 1, down under the public hearing on the 5-year community development application, first sentence to recess the regular meeting. And then on page 4, fourth paragraph, Ms. Troy said, "The center offers." So I will make a motion to approve the amended minutes as noted.
can I get a second to that motion?
Second it.
Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay. Any noes? Okay, motion passed. Number 1 is to approve Teresa Golden to attend the annual assessor's office at Cornell in July. This says at a cost of $916 plus meals and mileage. In totaling those out, it is to not exceed $1,200. There's $1,000 that is budgeted, and this money is split between Lysander and Van Buren, so our cost will not be anywhere near the $1,000. So can I get a motion to approve that?
I will make that motion.
Second.
Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Next is moving on to the appointment of lifeguards for the pool for this summer. You all have the memo. We get a motion to appoint John.
I didn't get a memo.
I didn't either.
It was attached agenda. That was emailed? I didn't know there was attachment.
Okay.
Do you want to read the names?
Yeah, John Licardello and Dan Gee will be returning head guards. They'll be making $18.50 an hour. This is John's 4th year, second as a supervising guard. This is Dan's 3rd year and second as a supervising guard. Kyle Langhorn is a returning guard. She will be making $17 an hour, and this is her 3rd year at the pool. Anna Mincini.
There's nothing attached to the agenda.
And Alex Hiltbrand, Brandt, and Liam Sweeney are all returning guards. She'll be making $16.75 an hour.
There was 3 attached.
This will be the second year at the pool for all 3 of these lifeguards. Carolyn Wilkinson, Ashton Taylor, Zach Dorito, Mackenzie Lloyd, Lily Rogers, Graham Bradford, Ben Webster, Trevor Valenti, Brody Snyder, Lauren Boyce, Sebastian Bradshaw, Elizabeth Craynack will all be new lifeguards, and they'll be making $16.50 an hour. Daniela Palumbo will be a new lifeguard. She'll be making $16.50 an hour, and she will be our potential aquatics director. She has to complete the aquatics director water safety instructor in order to be the aquatics director. And upon certification, she will move up to $18.50 an hour. Also, Emma Brookins and Gabrielle Brookins will be the new pool cashiers, and they'll be making $15 an hour. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments?
Yes, does that bring us up to full strength?
We have a couple of people that will be subbing in and out, but yes, that should get us up to full strength.
Well, I gotta give Heidi the chops then, because it's hard to get lifeguards.
It is.
She jumped on this right away, so we had our share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
people, I think the city of Syracuse is looking for them as well, so. They just had a job fair.
Yeah, I wanted to say the same thing, because I know like the Y is struggling to get lifeguards. We anticipated struggling to get lifeguards, everybody's struggling, and I think that's why the wages are probably a little bit higher than they were in the past, but I think it's 100% acceptable.
And reoccurring, we've
Highly
always
agree,
given,
Jeff.
Yeah, and people have come from the Y and other locations to the town because they were contacted early enough. So, motion and second, Lynn? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Next is to declare court copier number 0551 and its stand 0552 as surplus. Can I get a motion to that?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
No one wants to declare surplus property.
It was your turn.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Councilor and committee reports. Darcy?
I don't have anything tonight.
How about on the employee handbook?
Oh, I guess that's true. We're going to schedule a meeting, Lynn, on May 25th at 4:30 for the Personnel Committee. And then, I guess, I mean, our meeting is not really, I guess we could call it a meeting of economic development for June 1st, 4:30, 5 o'clock. But since we have a board meeting that night, you want to do 5 o'clock?
Sure.
5 o'clock on June 1st for economic development.
It's
Wednesday?
actually your call, I shouldn't have.
No, that's fine. I don't have anything.
Mike?
I'd like to comment on the tree removal stuff that Chris and the crew did, because like Doug said, I went out there yesterday whenever I sent the photos to everybody. And from the first photo where you have a giant tree this big around that's spanning across the road, and now the photos I took, the road is clear, the tree is almost gone. There's still a root ball, probably, I don't know the size, about 20 feet in diameter, maybe.
Wow. Did you guys
Huge.
measure it?
It's huge, the root ball itself, the
I'm thinking the pictures didn't do it justice.
no, not at all.
The before and after pictures are quite amazing.
But I went out there as Chris and Luke and a couple other guys were out there actually working on it. They were actually working with the mulch that you guys brought to them. Yeah, I just think it was an amazing job they did, so I just want to congratulate them on that.
Thank you. We'll get that over to Chris. Howard?
I can't think of anything except that Wendy and I attended the planning board session for the discussion of the Kriegel property, and it was presented again because the chairman had some ideas that the developer straightened out. So I think we're on the right path.
But those were informal meetings.
That's right.
Yeah, informational meetings.
That's right.
Okay. Doug?
Nothing this evening.
Okay. Is that because Lynn told you no?
I was supposed to instructions.
Okay. Just one other comment that I have. The Canton Street Bridge project is tentatively scheduled for closure on, Canton Road is tentatively scheduled for closure on June 6th, and tentatively scheduled Brickyard Road closure of July 16th. And as we hear more information, we'll get that to you. Slate Hill Construction out of Warner's is actually the project manager for that. So it's nice to have a local road being handled by a local company. So. And they, I believe, committed that it will be done this year. And Warner's Road is definitely on for next year as well.
Bridge.
Bridge, yes.
You got an update, you've heard an update on that? Because last I heard, they were having problems with steel. And there was potential for that bridge to be open for winter.
Oh, boy.
Canton?
That's a rumor I had heard. That has not been confirmed with anybody, but that is something I will be looking into tomorrow.
Okay, because
Just heard that today.
Monday, May 9th, Slate Hill Construction emailed Mike Knowlton and gave him this specific update. So they haven't given him any other changes to that timeline.
Mike Nolan's the one that actually told me about it.
Why don't you check in with Slate
Yeah.
Hill,
So I
Yeah.
will do some research tomorrow and find out like I need to report back and forth.
and if you
Okay,
could circulate an email and
Yeah.
just keep us posted.
It's not a rumor.
because I asked Todd Gold from the Thruway before we got this information, so.
Well, even that's earlier. Originally, they didn't want to start till after school was out, and so
Yeah, I'll get the latest version of what is and forward it put in the board.
Okay. That's all I have. Citizens' comments? Anybody like to speak? Mary?
You want me to use?
Sure. That way you can be a star on PAC-B.
Pardon?
You can be a star on PAC-B.
I'm going to turn my back. I'm going to talk to you. No, you were talking about a request for a stop sign on Connor, Cross Country and
Sun
Sun Meadows.
Mhm.
And my neighbor stopped me today and asked about it. I'm not sure who talked to Ron, but I told
I
him.
got the call, and then we did talk to Doug, and it's coming back to us.
But I told her the same thing you said, that stop signs couldn't be used for speed control, but we could request more sheriff's patrols through there. Sometimes it just takes 1 or 2 sheriff's cars on the scene to stop it. I have a feeling that a lot of it is through traffic coming maybe from Syracuse Home employees on their way down to the stoplight on Downer.
That's always been the concern at that.
Or it's the neighbors.
Well, we had the same thing in Harbor Heights. It turned out to be the residents that were
Yeah.
speeding.
Thanks, Mary.
Do you want to be the speed control officer up there, Mary?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak?
Yes.
Can you use the microphone, please, and identify yourself?
Use the microphone.
Okay. I have a hard time hearing. Can you make it lower? Okay, my name is Amy Stewart. I live in Bill Krigo's house. I've lived there for 17 years. I had the honor of knowing Bill Krigo for 3 months. And I will tell you that the first time that I met him was when we were thinking about purchasing the home. My husband was with the realtor. Bill sat me aside. He showed me pictures of places that him and his wife had traveled. He told me about the history of the house. He brought me into his foyer and showed me a Native American artifact, which was approximately 6 to 8 inch spearhead that he had in his windowsill. And this was the first time that I met him. And he told me about what had happened on his property and why the excavation occurred and what they had found. Bill passed, unfortunately, 3 months after that. And when this proposed action happened, I could only think of what Bill had told me at the end, at the first day that I met him. He said, I would never want this to be anything but agricultural land, but my farm that my family has owned since 1856. But this is going to be my children's land, and they have to make that choice. This is the first day that I met him. So with all due respect, Mr. Tupper, you are most certainly on the wrong path to the Krigo subdivision. Not you personally, but the town. So what I would like to do first, I'd like to show you that there has been corruption, there has been mishandling of information on state and local level, for at least 17 years, and that's the time that we've owned the house, because that's all I have. I could actually probably just save with like one of those. Yeah, we give it one of those. So I also want to say that I've had these documents for over a year, and I didn't want it to come to this point. I respect the Krigo family. I respected I respect Bill, but it's time that the public understand what occurred prior to the zone change of over 26,000 acres of land in Van Buren. So we're going to look specifically at 5 separate pages. The first page is the CERCLA form, which was filed with the state. It has to be filed for a zone change. It's extremely important for environmental, especially a piece of property located on the Seneca River, very sensitive area of land in Baldwinsville. And at the time, the acting town supervisor was Mayor Creco. This form is proof that there were false claims made for her own financial benefit and gain, which is why we are in this room today, almost 20 years later. So if you look at page 5, so the first thing I want you to see, and there's many things, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. So on page 5, it says the total contiguous acreage owned or controlled by the project sponsor is over 24,000 acres. Then I want to draw you to page, here. Okay, and page 10, it has her as the acting person, acting supervisor in town of the Van Buren, as the person who is in charge of this form. Then we're going to look at page number 4. Okay, page number 4 is, these are all pieces of information that CERCLA needs to approve a project. So on page number 4, it says at the bottom of the page, impact on agricultural land resources. Will the proposed action affect agricultural resources? She checked no. And examples of affecting agricultural land resources might be the proposed action would sever, cross, or limit access to agricultural land, including cropland, hayfields, pastures, vineyards, or orchards. Construction activity would excavate or compact the soil profile of agricultural land. The proposed action would irreversibly convert more than 10 acres of agricultural land, or if located in an agricultural district, more than 2.5 acres of land. Her response to all of those were no. Now I want to direct you to page 16. So on page 16 at the bottom of the page, some very important questions are asked, especially when we think about sensitive land in the Seneca River. And the question is, impact on historic and archaeological resources. Will the proposed action impact any site or structure of historic, prehistoric, or paleontological importance? She checked no. Examples of that might be proposed action occurring wholly or partially within a substantially contiguous to any facility or site located on the national, state, or local register. At the time, Bill's home was not on the National Register that this application was filed on August 3rd of 2005, but in 1987 and 1997, it was determined by the state agencies that the land was considered a recommendation for a National Historical District based on archaeology. So she was fully aware of that. That was public knowledge for the state, public knowledge for this town, but yet she still checked no. Another part of this, any impact to archaeological site or fossil bed located within the project site, or proposed action will occur in an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites on the New York State site inventory. Before this form was filed, we had the Erie Canal barge system that is considered a historical site. We have the fact that we've got the Seneca River, and we have all the area around it that we know has Native American and cultural heritage, but yet on this state form, she marked no as our town supervisor. And then I want to go back to end this with the first page of this document, the CERCLA form. That's very, very important. And on the CERCLA form, it gives you 3 conditions of why you might be flagged by the state. And clearly, she knew, as an acting person in our government, what she shouldn't check yes to, because that would be a red flag. We bought our house in the end of July 2005. This form was filed on August 3rd, 2005, and there is another document I have that is from a public hearing that gave notice to the public that on August 16, 2005, and I don't have copies, but I can, well, you have this on file, I got it from your office. On August 16, 2005, at 7:45 p.m. at the Van Buren Town Hall, there will be a public hearing to propose a zone change to these agricultural districts. And as we all know, that occurred, because that is why we were standing here today. That is an egregious abuse of power at a local level for personal profit and gain that affected over 26,000 acres of our community. 26,000 acres. But her acres were hidden within those 26,000 acres. So the plan had begun. We bought the house. A couple weeks later, Bill moved to the Syracuse home, and unfortunately 3 months later, he passed. He was gone. It was time to move. Time to start the plan in action. And I don't know this. I don't know at the time. I'm assuming that Claude Sykes was probably the deputy acting supervisor at the time under Mary, because he is the one that took over. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But there's corruption that goes back a long time. And the corruption is happening now. The traffic study is inaccurate, egregiously inaccurate. If we look at the archaeological information, so you think it's going the way it's supposed to. Well, it's going exactly the way the planning board wants it to go, but that's not the way the state sees it. So after this last archaeological survey was done, there said that we have concerns regarding the project's potential to adversely impact cultural resources listed eligible for New York State National Registers based on archaeology. And we have copies of this too that I will give you. In the informational meeting that happened last March, Brolex commented that the artifacts on that land were only about 85 years old. And when you did the cultural survey that just happened, the phase 1 and 2, the surface survey, you did find things that were only in the 1800s. But in 1987 and 1997, they did a phase 3. A phase 3 includes digging, not actually just walking through the fields looking for arrowheads, but digging. And what did they find? They found 3 of the largest longhouses in New York State in the phase 3 archaeological dig. That is public record. And that is something the community needs to understand. The state also said that these artifacts that were found in 1987 date back approximately to 2500 BC. Some of the first land of the Iroquois is right in our backyard, prehistory. Another requirement was that there was a Native American on site to watch what was happening. And he found a lull or a mound. So at the end of all of this, I mean, I could go into, there's 2 surveys, one 1987, one 1997, that are over 200 pages. They show graphs. They show exactly where all the fossils are. They show very detailed information. But in the end of this most recent survey, it said that the archaeologists identified pre-contact sites on the farm. In addition, Mr. Gagne, who is the Native American who is there to oversee it, has requested that the knoll in the northwestern portion of the plowed field within the project area be investigated prior to the proposed construction housing development to determine if there are cultural remains, including human remains, within the knoll. This would consist of backhoe trenching across the knoll. That is a phase 3 archaeological survey. That needs to occur before any construction happens on that site. And there's one last thing I would like to present to you. Currently in legislature, there is the Unmarked Burial Protection Act. That bill has been, they've been trying to put it into law for about 5 years now. It's now currently at the third reading, which means it'll go to assembly. In the last vote, there were 7 yay, no nay. And now, if it passes in the assembly, which will be voted on in the next 2 weeks, it goes to the governor. And that protects all unmarked burial sites in New York State. It's called the Unmarked Burial Protection Act. And what some of you also may not understand, and I gotta find my last piece of paper, is what the definition of that is. So when you think of burial sites, most people think, oh, bones, skulls, you know, those type of things. We gotta find skeletons to prove that there was some type of Native American sites. But according to the Hondanesi, or the people of the Longhouse, basically anything that is associated with their people, whether it be pottery or beads or belts, and a lot of the artifacts that were actually found in those longhouses are considered part of their ancestors. So essentially, you would be doing construction on a cemetery of Native Americans. A cemetery. Would we go down to the lake, to the river, and just decide, you know, we need to build some more houses, let's just plow through that cemetery? This is sacred land, and only 26% of over 100 acres has actually been surveyed. Just think about that.
Amy, what number is
Can
that?
anyone live with that? I mean, that is,
What number is that? Can you repeat that again?
was what?
26%.
26% over 101 acres. And on this last archaeological survey, it was only phase 1 and phase 2, which is basically surface. They also did not use the correct sonar that could actually go through the rock to detect any other type of archaeological evidence. The state knows this, we know it, and I don't think the town really knows it. And the last statement I think I'd like to make, so I'm not going to take everyone's time, is a statement from the state. The Krigo site, this is the most recent one, thus represents a unique and valued historical resource within the state. As well as potentially sacred cultural site for the Onondaga Nation, the Krigo site and the larger APE for the Krigo Farm Housing Development Project have the potential to offer additional avenues for the late woodland archaeological research, including a clear framework on the chronology of the site of the late woodland formation of a village, larger than any other village that we have known in New York State along the Seneca River. So the only reason that that village is still here today and it has not been commercialized or there's no subdivision is because of the Krigo family. It's because they have farmed that land for over 150 years. 150 years. We are willing to take land, valuable, fertile soil land, away from our community when right now we're outsourcing fruits and vegetables from other countries? We're ready to destroy that for some more houses? In this market? It doesn't even make sense. But yet this is how things get pushed through local government, because all it takes is a vote. And interesting also, that Claus Sykes did retire, but now he's on the planning board, which will make the determination if this particular site goes on to the zoning board that will change it to a possible PUD, which would give Brolex the opportunity to do whatever he needs to do.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, or a couple of statements. This environmental impact study obviously was conducted with both the engineer and the attorney at the time. Mary's name as supervisor is the one that signed the document on behalf of the town. But I will ask our attorneys to look into who developed this, who was involved in this statement, this EIS form, and find that out. And as far as Claude Sykes, I don't know if he was even on the board in 2005. I really have no idea. I don't think he was. So
He was not.
That's, in a sense, that's really a moot point.
Well,
The point
no,
is that there are several people, obviously, that are involved in filing these forms to the state. Because it's very important. If Circle came in and said, no, environmentally, this is going to cause a huge impact, you would not have been able to do it. But so she was town supervisor. So she may have had attorneys, she may have had other people, but this involved her family's land. And she was town supervisor. That is definitely a conflict of interest.
I understand that. So I will send this on to our attorneys to look at. There has been no actual formal process for this whole development. This is anything that has come through has been informational only. So before we would go any further, and as I mentioned to you in the email today, Wendy is the town rep, town board rep on this committee, and we will look into this, and we will bring this back up, you know?
It is important that you do, but it's also important for the community to understand that once this goes to the planning board, once we go to a public hearing, and yes, we all get to stand up and we get to talk about why we disagree with what's about to happen, essentially, the vote in most cases has already been decided. We get a chance to complain, we get a chance to say what we feel about what's about to happen to our community, but if it goes on, if it gets voted on to the zoning board, then probably 90% of the chance of the time, it's going to happen. And it's going to happen very quickly, because many people have heard that the deal's done. That we should just stand back and just let it happen, because the deal's done, deal's been done. And actually, the first time that I approached Claude Sykes about this, in February of 2021, he laughed at my archaeological survey. He said, "You've got nothing. The deal is done."
There is no deal. Nothing has been done. There has been no determination to have this started at the planning board. As I mentioned, it's got to go through various stages. Nothing has been done. There is no absolute deal. There is a sale potential, but that is as far as it's done. It's gone.
Okay,
So,
that's very literal. The deal is not necessarily done. No, it's not. But what it tells me is that there's a lot of confidence and there's a lot of arrogance in what has happened and what is about to happen. That's what that says to me. That's just what the community should understand. That is arrogance, that is confidence. Yes, there's a process we have to go through, but all depends on a vote.
Rich, will you speak to the process and how the town has a responsibility to follow through on a request for a development like this?
Yeah, so, I mean, any zone changes, and I'd have to look at the Van Buren's code, but any zone change comes before the town board, it's a legislative act, which,
Well, if somebody brings something to the planning board that they want to develop something, does the town have a responsibility to review that?
absolutely.
Can you
I mean,
get-
that's their, if they own the property or they're under contract to purchase pending land use approvals, they have every right to submit an application. You know, the town can't just decide on its own that it will refuse to entertain that application. That's the point of the whole process, to hold public hearings, to gather information, to go through, you know, the secret process, and to, you know, weigh the application on its merits, weigh it in accordance with, you know, your town laws, and, you know, to ensure that it complies with those laws and with you know, secret. But yeah, you can't just refuse a property owner to entertain their application. You know, it has to go through the process.
Could the town get sued if we fail to follow the correct process?
The developer or applicant could potentially bring an action in Supreme Court to, you know, require that. The one thing with zone change is because it's a legislative act, it's a little different than your run-of-the-mill land use application. Because it's a discretionary, there's no necessarily there's no requirement that the town board grant a zone change. It's within the discretion of the board. It's very, very, very rare that a court would compel a zone change, but you know, that there is a potential for a lawsuit. I have seen those before, so.
All right, Amy, again, I will say that I certainly will bring it to our current attorneys and have them review the whole matter going back to 2005. And when we get a report from them, we certainly will bring it back up.
it's important to bring it back up, and it's also important to note that if this was corrupt, it was not something that was ethical, as far as lying on state documents, that a proposal to zone the land back to agricultural should occur.
Well, I want to just be careful that you're accusing people of corruption, that right now, this board has no way of determining that. I understand your concern, but we will have the attorneys take a look at it, so.
I just presented facts. It's not an accusation, these are facts. This is a form that was submitted to the state. So you can call it corruption, you can call it anything that you want, but this is factual.
Okay, well, we will certainly have the attorneys review the entire matter.
All right, thank you for your time.
I'd like to inform you that I'm very impartial on this whole matter. I don't have sides. I don't take sides. I can't do that. I have to follow the law like everybody else.
It's good to hear.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Yes, sir? Please come up to the mic.
My name is Tom Shaw. I live at 2227 Tappan Street. It's the other house next to the Stewarts. Since this project started or became a reality, so to speak, I've been to a lot of the zoning planning board meetings just to follow up to make sure that everybody was on board with what was going on and how it was going to transpire to you. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the Planning Zoning Board will recommend to you, the town board, whether or not this is an acceptable proposal. And then it's you, the town board, who has the say yes or no. Is that my understanding is correct?
Correct.
All right. What they want to do, and what I'm concerned with mostly, and I reiterate a lot of what Amy said, is that the change in zoning from its current R44, which allows for single-family housing on 1 acre lots, which was kind of put through under the guise of the 31, back when the zoning change from agricultural occurred. That I could live with. Apartments, houses on quarter-acre lots or smaller, no. And the only way they're going to get apartments is to make a zoning change from the current residential zone to a PUD, which will allow apartments. Now, the chairman of the Planning Zoning Board Committee has assured me that that's all that will go in there. There'll be no commercial. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You don't even have the zoning change made. Why is all of this ongoing procedure about the development of the land happening without any concern for, one, there's a petition out, and there's over 2,000 people that have signed it that would rather see the land either stay as it is or go to some other form of development other than houses and apartments or residential aspect of things. Rolex, in a couple of the meetings that I had attended, stated that there was a big demand for housing. There isn't a big demand for housing. For low-income housing or affordable housing, as they put it, yes, there is. It's not that New York State or Onondaga County is going to grow in population. You're just going to transfer population. And my guess is that it will come from the inner city to the community of Baldwinsville, which I've been a member of for 52 years. You know, and along with that, if you think that the problems that the city has is going to stay in the city, it's not. So these are a lot of concerns that I look at, not particularly because it's in my backyard, but as a community in general. And as far as them, they being Brolex or the developer suing the town, you're allowing him to go through all of what he's going through. And even if they meet all of the requirements that the town puts before them, you as the town still have the right to say, no, there's enough people that don't want this in there, we're not going to accept your proposal. The threat of someone suing someone else shouldn't even be a consideration. Your consideration should be, as a representative in the town, is, am I doing the will of the people? Not the bottom line for some corporate entity that probably doesn't really know or care about Baldwinsville. The same with the attorneys involved. The same with the applications that were sent in to the various agencies. These are people that don't know Baldwinsville. They rely on you, the members of the board, the members of the committee, to tell them what is factual. And again, I would think that there would be a better use for this property than making apartments and houses crowded together. We need agricultural land. I look at the current situation in Ukraine. I didn't know this at the time. Ukraine supplies 51% of the world's grain. Wheat. 51%. And this is a national news agency. So we're currently eating ourselves out of house and home. So to use agricultural because it's close to sewer, water, and power, and it'd make a profitable use of the land is not always the best. So I would urge you to think all the thoughts that cover this project before you decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
Can I just ask a question? Are you saying that that land is not zoned now for apartments, or it has to be zoned
No,
specifically?
it's currently zoned R44, which is a single-family house on a 1-acre lot. They wanted, the Rolex company wants to change it to a PUD, which is a planned unit development.
So it has, but does the zoning have to change?
Yes.
The zoning has to change.
Yep.
And my whole contention is that you're putting the cart before the horse. When you're designing this whole project before the zone change ever occurs.
Well, it has to be planned before it comes to the town board. The one thing,
It has to be planned and that they will give you an idea, which is all they've done, as to what they would like to put in there and how it would like to go in there.
Then if they get it.
9 times out of 10, that will not be the final outcome of what and I understand the process that you all have to go through. And yeah, it's early in its stages, but there's a lot of things that you have to think about.
Let me just also describe a PUD, and Rich, please correct it if I'm wrong as well. A PUD can be to give a site so that every house does not have to have the same 70-foot wide or 75-foot wide. It can be a combination of sizes of lots. There is a potential to have apartments, which would be considered business. But again, there is nothing set that it has to have a business, it has to have so many lots of this size, so many lots of another size. Rich, is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, the PUD just allows more flexibility from a land use standpoint, which is, potentially why the developer has chosen to go that route rather than develop it under the existing zoning, so.
Does a PUD allow for commercial property? I know that's not his plan.
It can.
Today's not his plan.
Today it's not his plan, but it allows for commercial and business property.
And that can be limited by the town as well.
But yet none of that would have any impact on traffic. None of it. Over 200 houses, possible businesses, maybe an urgent care. That's not going to have any impact on traffic. That's a whole other issue, the traffic study.
Any change to the PUD, like if there was a PUD with just residential and single-family homes and apartments, and that was approved, just hypothetically, any additional changes, if you had a commercial use or a urgent care, those would have to go through an amendment to the PUD, so you'd have to go through the process again. So it's not just that they can do whatever they want, they're still subject to that PUD approval. So anything that they change in the future would still have to go through the process again.
Any other comments or questions?
Now, would you clarify one thing that you had said before, the possibility of the developer suing or the landowner suing the town if they said no to the PUD change? On what grounds?
How can they sue the town? I mean,
I've seen, it's very rare in terms of zone changes for that type
it's up to
of
them if they want to change it or not.
lawsuit to occur, but I have seen it done. I've been involved in some of those lawsuits. So I've seen it done. It's not common because, again, a zone change is a legislative act, and the courts generally defer to the legislative body. They don't want to interfere with the legislative process in that regard. But again, it's possible. Whether or not that would prove to be successful is, you can't tell right now.
Okay.
So Amy, for your benefit, I just want to make sure that you guys understand, when the developer brings this before the planning board, they have to go through the nuts and bolts of it before it's shifted over to us for a vote. That's why it's taking so long over there, because it's a huge development. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of changes that have to be made. All of that process is happening right now at the planning board. It doesn't mean that it's a go. It's just in that working stage until they get it to a finite situation where it's presentable to us. So it is not a go. It hasn't been brought to us. And like Mary Frances said, any meeting they've had has been informational. And the meeting that Howard and I just went to, that's the latest layout of the developer's vision. As you know, that they did do the phase 1. They did identify 5 sites that had some archaeological finds. If they wanted them to go over those 5 sites that are identified on there, they would have to move to a phase 2 or not disturb the area. At this point, the developer agreed to not disturb those areas and is planning to work around those areas. So right now, we're waiting for him to bring back a new layout of his potential development.
Although the recommendation from Tony Gaia, who represents the Onondaga Nation's recommendation was that he would like a phase 3 done on the lull that was found in the backside of the property, which he thinks has some type of burial remains.
Right, I did hear you say that. you know, I don't know anything about that part, but I just wanted
Well, I
to.
actually have a copy of it for you.
So the concern is that
Update
as more red goes up there, it limits how much he can build, is gonna inspire him to put even more apartments on there so he can create some kind of value out of whatever land is left to build on.
So from my
Just
own
continue
personal
this.
opinion, I can tell you, you know, I've talked to people, and I'm gonna speak on myself only. I'm not in favor of the apartments at all. And when he presented that, he had like maybe 20 parking spots. It's not viable right now the way he has it laid out. There's not enough parking for the apartment buildings. So that's a work in progress too.
So this last copy I'm going to give you is the recommendation from the last page of the Archaeological Survey that is almost 200 pages. And the last line on the page is from the chief of the Onondaga Nation, who was there overseeing the site. And basically his concerns on what he believed was a burial site. But what we know, based on the Unmarked Burial Protection Act in New York State, is that bones don't just equal a burial site. But he wants a stage 3 archaeological survey completed.
And do you know if he gave this recommendation to SHPO?
Everything,
That's in the survey,
this is the archaeological survey that you actually have on file here, and everything goes to SHPO because SHPO made the recommendations for Rolex to proceed the way that he did. They required him to do a phase 1 and a phase 2, but
Right.
a phase 1 and phase 2 is not very invasive, considering that in 1997, they did a phase 3 and they found 3 longhouses underground
Right.
and buried them. And there
Right.
were multiple artifacts that were taken from that site, but strangely enough, they were brought to a museum, but they weren't put under the Kriegels name. They were put under a name called Bouchamp. So this goes back a long way.
That was Peter Parker, wasn't it?
Parker?
Wasn't it? Peter
I don't
somebody.
know. I thought it was Bouchamp, but it's possible
He was an archaeologist from Oswego State. I was there when he was doing it.
And there was another archaeologist, I can't remember, I have his book, but he was from Syracuse University that was also there, and I think that might have been in 1979 they were out there as well, and then 1987 and 1997 when they put the power line through.
But
Like I
the
said,
artifacts did disappear.
They
So
disappeared.
McManus might have a lot of that information.
Yeah, they disappeared, and some of the things Bill told me that they found fully intact moccasins, they found beaded necklaces, they found dolls that were fully intact. The longhouse posts are still in the ground, underground. The longhouses typically had like a bunk bed type thing where people would lay in slats. They were still intact in the ground, and they're there today, underground. So when Rolex comes through, if he was to come through and just start digging away, he's gonna dig through, 2,500 years, 100 years old history, Native American homes.
Well, they only dated back to 700 AD,
2,500 BC.
not all of them.
And actually, some of the, on the Pratt archaeological report, some of the artifacts.
That's the one, Peter Pratt.
Peter Pratt, that some of those artifacts carbon dated back to over 4,000 years old. 4,000 on the Seneca River, and that was the one archaeological. So there's a lot of amazing information for this town to understand, like what we have here. Like this is amazing. Wouldn't it be amazing if SU bought that land and gave the Kriegels the money that they deserve and use it as a site to train their archaeological students? I mean, that is a plethora of information to be studying at all times. I mean, that would be the perfect situation. It stays agricultural, it stays historical, but yet the Kriegels get the money that they deserve. That's all that everyone wants. It is their land. It's not my land, it's not anyone's land, but it was first Native American land. It is part of our history.
I will say that I know our attorney has the SHPO, and she does have to go through them, or she and/or Rich will be reviewing those documents as well. But at this point, I think the way to proceed is I will get with our attorneys, and we will take a look at what you requested regarding how the original zone change from AR to R40 went through, and we'll take it from there.
I have one more question on that. So if you determined that that was not handled correctly, then is there a motion to rezone it back to agricultural?
I have no idea.
So that's a very good question, because that would solve a lot of problems. And it would keep the land that we have in this town. You know, and I will say one more thing, I keep saying that's the last thing I'm gonna say, but my husband and myself have lived in that house only 17 years, where the Shaws have been here for over half a century. We are empty nesters. If the subdivision goes through, it would break my heart, but I don't know if we won't leave. But I will tell you this much, I will not back down on this land being subdivided and desecrating Native American artifacts. I will not. I will still be here, and I will fight it. I will fight it because I believe in it, and also because it's what Bill would want.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Amy, thank you for coming in.
Yep. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can we get engineer comments?
Got engineer and attorney comments.
Jason, anything else?
No, I don't.
Okay. Rich, nothing?
No.
Okay.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I don't want to get picky, but there's an easement behind all the houses, right? And somebody's got to get the easement to take care of this yard. The neighbor won't let him go down to take care of, he does the mowing service. The neighbor won't let him get back there to mow. He's even put a dog out. So my question is, what's the answer? Put a gate in the fence so he can get out of the fence to go to the easement?
That I don't know how to respond to at this point. I
Well, that's
probably will ask.
I want you to bring it up, but I thought
The easements we
it'd make
have,
something easy for people, maybe.
or the easements we have are for the town to maintain drainage, not for, it's property owners.
So how do you mow on the outside of your fence? When you allow the fence to go right to the line? That's not right.
I agree.
It's got to go back to 24 inches for a 24-inch lawn. Because this guy said really ambitious, you don't want to use a weed whacker. I said, maybe you could use a weed whacker. I'm going back there as a weed whacker. But I said,
There's a dog loose in that.
so the only thing I could tell a neighbor is she'd have to put a fence in, or a gate.
I'm going to ask the codes office to take a look at this and get back to you.
Yeah.
Okay?
They had no trouble, but all of a sudden, people moving in are kind of, we got to go to their equipment, not to ours, They set the standard for us, and not for us to set the standard for them.
Okay.
I get sick of it.
I'd like to just quickly say, Ms. Stewart and Mr. Shaw, thank you for the passion and for bringing this information. I personally appreciate it. So thank you.
Me too. Keep up the fight.
Oh, anyone who knows me knows I will not stop. Because like I said, it's what Bill wanted. And he also wants his children to have money that they deserve. They do deserve it. But there's got to be another way. There has to be another way. So I'm going to be searching for that too. Got some contacts at SU, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, I just want to state, because this is such a volatile issue, the whole Kriegel property thing, I'm the neighbors, you guys are severely impacted by it. We're a little bit far out early on the whole concept. I get where you guys are coming from, but I think it's important to understand that Brandon is already working within this town. He's already got a development. He has an ongoing relationship both with this board and with the planning board. So he has a good working relationship with them because of an ongoing project. And I'd like to make sure that the town has very clear communications with what they have with this developer. Because what I've seen as this has been going on since he started Trey Brook, since the turnaround was put in, that there's informal conversations that happen between the entities that are in front of the board publicly and also on the side. So I think that the town really needs to make sure that it's very clear that the communications they're having with the developer over this issue are somehow communicated to the entire community, so that they know what's happening, so we don't have the feelings of backroom dealings or being constrained by just a vote that's decided. That's not really how it works. It's a long process. There's a lot of input from the state and things, but I really think it's incumbent on the town board to come up with a way to communicate better with the neighborhood
Community.
so that they understand. So as we go forward, that people's concerns across the board, because, you know, the Krigos have a right to do stuff with their property as any entity does within the town, anything. So the more clarity that can be brought to this, it'll help everybody, because you have Facebook and you got Twitter and you got all kinds of stuff going on, and, you know, people make accusations and unfounded things, unfounded statements. And the board really's got to get out in front and try and prevent that, and that's my point of view.
How do they do that, the board?
That's their job. They've got to
I
figure
know,
it
I
out.
say, how would you suggest they do
I don't have the
that?
answer.
We could
for
publish
them,
the
but
minutes.
That's their job.
Pardon me?
We could publish the minutes.
Well, the minutes are
Yeah,
okay.
but you gotta
I
get
think
people
it's
to
gotta
read them,
be
you gotta
more.
get people to come to the meetings and read the internet and all the things that people don't do. The only way you're gonna get people to know is if they come or if they wanna know.
And
That's-
informational meetings is a key to the
But they've
whole
gotta
thing.
come and want the information.
Right.
And people just.
I wish
don't do
more
it,
people were like
Which
you.
is unfortunate. Pardon me?
I wish more people were like you.
Well, I do too. Well, no, I don't. I wish more people would be involved.
Yes.
Well, maybe it would be so bad to be like me.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn until June 1st at 7 PM?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all for coming.